Hi, y'all. I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all-natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self-care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co-founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. How do we do this?
We do it.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yes,
I
real life.
realized I didn't put the episode title in our the episode number in our title. So you know me, I don't remember numbers like that. What are we
Oh,
at today?
163, 163.
163. Hello,
Yes.
episode 163.
Yes. How you feeling coming into this episode?
Whoo, have I been off 1 or 2 weeks? I can't even remember. So, for our
2.
listeners, I've been out 2 weeks. Yeah. Yeah. So, had a little health episode. I'm doing
Yes.
okay, but
Glad you're
I woke up a couple of weeks ago with Bell's palsy, and it is something that has been in my system for about 27 years, but I do, I have a lot of practices. I have a lot of things that keep me healthy. And this one kind of caught me by surprise. Y'all know, our listener knows, I've been under a little bit of stress the last year and a half, but they don't think it was that. They actually think it was that hike I took, and we probably talked about it on air. The hike I took up, where was I? I was in North Georgia with Joe and the dog, and actually had one of the best pictures that I've ever taken in a while. And but I got a tick bite that day. And I kind of forgot about it. But when I was at the ER, they were asking, have you been bitten by a tick recently? And I was like, well, actually, I have. And they were like, when? And I go back and I look at my pictures. And so I know exactly how this happened, right? Because the tick bite ended up being in my right ear. Ooh,
Wow.
gross, all the things, right? But I look at my pictures and here I am holding the dog up next to my face for a picture in front of the waterfall. So I can probably tell you the exact instant that it happened. I got a timestamp on the photo.
Wow. Monty, we love you. No more ticks, okay?
Monty.
No more
One for
ticks.
the team is what happened. Yeah, because then this was interesting because I was like, yeah, but that was like 6 weeks ago. And they said, oh no, tick-borne illnesses come on 30 to 60 days after the actual bite.
Wow.
I was like, yep. So there we go.
There we go. Okay.
There we go. So that's what I've been dealing with. I'm probably about 90% back and grateful my energy's back. And I've been doing a lot of travel and different things for InterPlay, but also for the family, getting prepped for my dad's funeral this Saturday. So just a lot going on. What about you?
Yeah. Pivoting through the transitions, it's been so interesting. We always talk about solopreneurs. I have you, I have Sino with Sheila Glow. And so how we do all this with partners and moving logistics has been what I've been focused on, so same thing, being intentional about the self-care, being intentional about my time management and making sure that I'm not overextending myself, pouring too much, but also taking care of things in a timely way because there's a lot of stuff. We're on episode 163, wrapping season 19 today, working on social media, working on these things. But before we start the show and go into our wrap of season 19, I was really, I guess you could say, comforted when I looked at our greatness plan. And for those of you who don't know what our greatness plan is, this is where we have all the details of our amazing guests, our shows, all the information, right? And I looked at season 18 and the shows that we had canceled, and then season 19 and the shows that we had guests for. And I said, oh, of course, look at all this stuff that's been going on, So sometimes when you zoom out and you look at everything, it's easier to give grace. And I said, okay, We've been
Right?
pivoting a lot. Yeah.
We talk about that in Stillpoint in the book
Mhm.
that Sheila K. Collins and I wrote. And we talk about taking a step back for a broader perspective in regards to our self care. Because often we can beat ourselves up. We can say, oh, we're not doing this perfect or this or
Right.
that. And, you
Yes.
know, you and I've personally taken more breaks in the last couple of months than I have in 3 years because
Absolutely.
of caregiving and health related. And it's easy to get on the, oh, we're out of sync or out of
Right.
this. But just
Right.
like you said, you take that step back and you go, but wait, there's 163 episodes that say differently.
Mhm. Right. Right. So the track record says differently. We knew that this would be coming, right? We know where life leads. And so we've been preparing for two
Right?
years, for
Yeah.
this season. And so even though we're walking through it for the first time and it feels different, that this is what we have the podcast about. The things that you're walking through for the first time. What do you do? What are you finding that you need in that moment? And then, how do you have your still points and your deep breaths and things for yourself throughout
Mhm.
it?
And your
And
resets when
your
things don't
reset.
go as you planned, right?
And for me, again, the resets and the rest that I can really get from that, I really want to hone down on the realistic expectations. And I've really
Right.
been enjoying Dr. Collins', I was gonna say second book. Is this her fourth book?
Fourth book.
Her
Yep.
first
On
book,
the art of grieving.
The Art of Grieving, and how she talks about the spiral. It's not a staircase. So when you're like,
Hmm.
why am I here again? Or why am I feeling like this? Well, it's part of the spiral and things happen. So
Right.
those are all the things
Yeah.
I've been holding and thinking about sharing with our listeners.
I love it.
Right. And every week, we go through one dimension, right? Again, we've talked about it. Today is the wrap of season 19. And so we're going to be talking about all of them. If you need a reminder, right? The 8 dimensions of wellness: physical wellness, social, emotional and mental is one, spiritual is one, financial wellness, occupational wellness, intellectual, and environmental. And we had some really good guests this season. We had really, and we feel like this every season, really good conversation, really good resources for you guys. Um, so we've still been having a ball, even through the logistics. And that's something I was sharing with somebody earlier. I was on the phone and I was like, even though this season has been a lot of grief and mourning of, um, expectations and where we thought we might have been, it's also a lot of celebration and a lot of amazing things happening. So I've been thinking about you at acknowledging both and allowing both to be true.
Right. Well, and I think when I think about what happened in our country this week, right?
Hmm.
Like lots of big stuff happening.
Let's talk about it.
Um, and how do we acknowledge both the grief and the gratitude? How do we look at when big stuff is swirling around us and we still have to go to work? We still have to pay the electric bill.
Yes.
And woo, it's high in Georgia right now too. That's a
Right.
whole nother conversation. Um,
You let it?
but really paying attention to that. And I don't know if because you and I haven't gotten to talk recently, but
Right.
have you been hearing what's swirling about Project 2025?
I've been hearing it and I want to go and read it. You know me, I'm always for going straight to the
Right?
source, but absolutely, I've been paying attention and listening to.
We can put a link in it to our show notes because everybody needs to look at it, y'all.
Mhm.
And you need to look at it before November. You need to make sure you're registered to vote.
Yes.
It is written, and you have to look at your viewpoint and what you look at. But the way I look at it, wah, yeah, not a fan. So,
Right.
so we want everybody to go check that out and pay attention. And I will just say, when it first came to my attention, I at first was like, this can't be real, right? Like, oh, this is just, I always look for sources. I always started looking, looked at the document,
Yeah.
also looked at the fact that our representatives have been interviewing people in the Capitol, the
Mm.
authors of this, and it is true. So it is true, and what they want to do is true. So, like,
Mm.
they want to defund the Department of Education, public
Mhm.
education. They want to put political appointees in government jobs, civic
Mm.
and government jobs that people have held for 30 or 40 years, that
Right.
they know how to do that job, right?
Mhm.
And that's just not the way our system is set up, right? Our system that's not the way. Or at
Right.
least that's not the way I think it's supposed to be done.
Right. Right. And on the podcast, we touch on things. We are intentional on the way that we hold conversations and the weight of
Mhm.
things, right? When you think about how to be intentional with your self-care and wisdom in action
Mhm.
around seasons like this, right? Political seasons,
Mhm.
big things like this. We talk about how we moved the first week of our podcast. Week
Right?
1 was moved because of
Right.
January
This whole
6th.
podcast has honestly
Crazy.
been shaped by this political season. It really
Right.
has when you think about it, because we
Yes.
were supposed to start day 1 of our podcast was supposed to be January 6th,
Yep.
and we postponed
And
for
we knew
obvious
that
reasons.
because of the media coverage, it will be buried in all the algorithms.
Well,
Yes.
plus, your co-host was connected to the news watching it. I'm sure you were too. We were watching everything unfold. Like, what? What is
And
happening
I
here?
was traveling, like we were coming from New Jersey back to Georgia, so in these times, and especially because you are always paying attention, connected to the canvassers, everything, what do you do for your wisdom and action for yourself?
Thank you for asking that. We actually did a whole class on it this Tuesday on the
Mhm.
Reimagine platform on our Radical Self and Community Care class. And
Yeah.
we were talking about self-soothing, and we were talking about, practices that bring you back to center, that bring you back grounded and bring you back to where, well, basically to where you're in your parasympathetic nervous system. Because when
Yes.
big things happen like this, and it's, unfortunately, especially in the United States right now, we're averaging 1 to 3 mass shootings a day.
Wow.
So if you are paying attention, this is not anything out of the subject of who was targeted was
Mhm.
out of the ordinary, but this
Right.
is I mean, we had a shooting this weekend in Savannah, Georgia, and I believe
Wow.
8 people were killed in our
I did
state.
not know that.
And it's
Wow.
right, right. It's because it's
Mm,
become so commonplace
mm.
that it's unfortunately gun violence is just the norm in America right now. And so, how do we, when things like this happen, when somebody we know is affected, or when it's everyday things, right?
Mm.
What do we do? I mean, I think the first thing is, I'm an embodied coach. So to me, it's about getting back in your body.
Right.
So for me, that's going outside, that's sitting under a tree, that's going to the water. Like I was recently in Seattle for the InterPlay leaders gathering and
Yes.
took a ferry. Like the day after it
Mm.
was done, we had a leaders gathering, and we had a working staff retreat. But the
Yeah.
day after that was done, I got on a ferry to go across to Whidbey Island. And it wasn't about going to the island, it was about being on that ferry and being that close to the water and putting
Yeah.
my feet in Puget Sound, and really the water nurtures me, the trees nurture me. What is it? And for everybody, for my clients, what is that thing that brings you comfort and brings you back? The other thing I've really been doing recently, of course, I've been hanging out with my mom, so it's been super fun. We've
Yeah.
been doing eccentrics. Have you heard of
Mm.
eccentrics?
No, what's eccentrics?
So eccentrics is a movement based. I guess it's considered an exercise, but it's really about
Okay.
stretching.
Okay.
It's about stretching different parts of your body. It's really gentle.
I do that
You
daily.
can find it on YouTube,
Mm.
but you can target certain muscles. Like you can target your head, neck, and shoulders. You
Mhm.
can target your hips. You could target your whole body. Um, and I'll put a link to it in our show notes. But
Please.
what I love about it, there's 2 things I love about it.
Okay.
Super gentle and 15 minutes. Like some of
Yeah.
the segments are like we do it we were traveling. We were doing a road trip from Colorado to Texas. So you know how in a road trip you got to stretch more. Or at least I
Yes.
do. Might be
That makes
Maggie.
sense.
But
No, I
um
don't think so.
we would do 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. And then we're like, "Oh, we can do 30 minutes." And we do 30 minutes. So
Nice.
that part, and then last night I had a woo, tough night of sleep. And
Okay.
you know how you wake up and your whole body's kind of aching and you're
Yes.
like, oh, I
Mhm.
can't function. Maybe
Mhm,
it's just
mhm.
me. But we did 30 minutes of eccentrics this morning. And because it was gentle and moving our body, my body
Mhm.
came back online. And it was
Mhm.
like, okay, I can do this. So
Good
those are
job.
some of my practices. Like, what do you do
Yes.
to get yourself out of fight or flight?
Yes. Um, I mean, honestly, the same thing. You know, we talk about social justice, we're talking about all these things in the nation. I think it's set up for me to stay there. So that's every day, is how do I keep myself calm and centered? Things you talked about, right? I didn't know it was called eccentrics, but stretching. Even if I'm not working out, and I've been an avid person who's intentional about working out, since elementary school, like that's always been the thing. Um, if I'm not working out 3 to 4 times a week, I am absolutely still stretching, right? So I stretch in the morning, stretch at night, and then bare minimum, along with my three types of facials, I try to keep in my regimen for the week. I definitely try to do a deeper stretch. So then that might be the 30 minutes. Usually I might stretch for 5 or 10 minutes, but if I'm really like giving myself a foot massage, doing these different things, it'll be a little longer. The way I keep in touch with my body and tap back in is Sheila Glow. We talk about doing the joints for circulation. And even yesterday, we've been enjoying this show called Nerve Center. And it's talking about stuff like Cirque du Soleil in the airport and UPS. And one of the episodes yesterday, the UPS episode, was talking about skin grafts and how these grafts were going to people who were diabetic that had ulcers on the bottom of their feet, and they had to get skin to help them heal. And that's always what I think about with Shalo Glow and the massaging, because some people don't have that sensation. They have to check on their feet very intentionally. So I always do my joints and make sure that I'm covered, so my immune system is covered. And then, of course, like we say, I think about you and Dr. Sheila K. Collins and Cecile and Dr. Kemp with the adopted trees in her yard, and just making sure that as I move through these logistics and time blocks, that I'm being really intentional about creating for myself as I help my clients with the different calls and things throughout the day. I also need a break, so, okay, if you work for 4 hours, give yourself a few minutes, okay, you took your 20-minute nap I've been working on. 20 minutes is not enough of a break throughout the day. Make sure you get another break.
Right. I recently saw, talking about napping, I recently saw that people who nap are have a less likely chance of dying from heart disease. If people are, they didn't call it, I think they said with habitual nappers.
Okay.
Like it didn't have to be long naps, like a power nap in the middle of,
Yep.
so that reset, right?
Yep.
Which goes exactly with what we're talking about getting
Yes.
us out of fight or flight or
Mhm.
freeze,
Yes. Right.
and getting us into that parasympathetic nervous system. Like,
And that reminds me of HeartMath, and that's something else that I use, right? Like when we're talking about your heartbeat per minutes being elevated, when you get news, when you're in a difficult situation or a difficult conversation, your heart rate's elevated. And as it continues to elevate, you might go into a state of incoherence. And some people are so tight and so above that healthy line that they stay there. So a nap and you completely unplugging from everything makes sense that it will help if we're not doing heart math on top of that.
right? And
Yeah.
just for our listeners that might just be joining us, will you tell folks what HeartMath is? Just give them a
Yes.
little synopsis of it. And we've got
Yes.
2 back episodes that you can reference, but
Yes. And as a disclaimer, they do have a whole organization part of this research, right, where they certify people you practice and you're one of the heart math practitioners. I am not, but I've loved Lori Ives' resource so much. I talk about it all the time, and I break it down by the name, right? Think about your heart, and if your heart had math, what would that be? That would be your heartbeat, right? So if we're talking about fight or flight, again, when you get into a difficult situation with somebody or difficult conversation and you're arguing, your voice is higher, your heart is higher, your blood pressure is higher, all these things are elevating. And what the research shows, because it is backed in research, is that even after that difficult conversation or that peak, that spike in your heart rate per minute, it doesn't go all the way back down to normal. And so I'm thinking about situations throughout the day, just keeps rising and traffic on the way to work and something before that, and it just rises and rises and rises. So what they have developed is a way to get yourself centered on your heart. You can put your hands over your heart. This helps me because it literally takes your focus from your brain to your heart. They absolutely advise first responders to not close your eyes and put your hands over your heart if you're driving or anything like that, right? But center on your heart, and it's measured breathing, either 4 or 5 beats in and out. And that would be you breathing in for 4, breathing out for 4, or breathing in for 5 and breathing out for 5, and centering 2 things in your heart. And so usually for me, one of those is gratitude and something else. And that gets you out of ruminating about that thing that was bothering you, or the upset situation, or whatever it is. And that helps me bring my heart rate down. That helps bring you back to coherence, so you're able to make more logical decisions, be in a healthier space in your body in general. And just like naps, makes you more effective with the things that you're doing after.
I'm so glad you brought up gratitude because it was very interesting in our class on Tuesday.
Yes.
Because we were interplaying with when big things happen in the world, and this is a group that we started when COVID first happened. We went online because Sheila and I had been touring around the United States with the Stillpoint book, and 2/3 of our business, our
Business.
engagements, our conference went away in one day,
Yes. It was
right?
crazy. Yeah.
And so we went online. And so we have been playing with some of these folks for 3 years, and then we get new folks all the time. But it was really fascinating to me because we always do a check-in about what's up for me today. And over half the group talks about gratitude.
Mm.
And so going back to what do we do in times of extreme stress or when we
Yes.
need to soothe ourselves, right?
Mhm.
To
Mhm.
look for the good, that
Mhm.
affirming the good, look for the helpers, to name our gratitudes and
Yes.
sit with our gratitudes, just like you were saying about anchoring that in your heart,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Maybe even make a list, like
Mhm.
make it kinesthetic, that it's,
Yes.
you're either dancing it or you're writing it or both, right?
Mhm.
And really focus on the things that are working. It's not to negate that there's not some
Big.
wild stuff happening right now or
Right.
stuff that needs to change,
Yeah.
but it's also to, just like you said, calm our heartbeats down, let our bodies know it's going to be okay,
Yes.
and to go from there.
Yeah.
So
So important.
yeah, I'm loving this convo. And I know we want to give a shout out to a couple of our guests from season 19.
Yes.
What is still sticking with you from season 19? What are you still
Oh,
thinking about?
I mean, so much. I always think about the ladies and our resources and our conversations. What came up in my mind when you asked me first was last week's episode with Dr. Alexia Meller. I was emailing her after the show and laughing because we had made they're probably jerk oven roasted chicken wings, these wings we've been loving the past few weeks, right? And in our show, she was talking about how great raw chicken bones are for your dog, right? Not cooked. Dogs absolutely cannot have cooked bones, right? But they can have raw ones. And she was talking about how their teeth were shaped. And so
Okay.
thinking about my flat teeth in the back, I changed the way that I was eating the chicken and started
Okay.
trying to make sure I was chewing with my front teeth more before I sent it to the back. And so
Right.
I emailed her and told her that it was funny. I was thinking about her when I was eating my chicken. And
So
yeah,
I
the dog
totally
nutrition is
hate that
amazing.
I missed that one. So what do I need to know from that
Oh
episode?
my
And I'll
goodness.
totally go back and listen to it. But
Yes.
what are the top 3 things I need to know for that episode for
Right.
Monty?
Right. So top 3 things. One, I would definitely um, suggest fresh food, right? You are already amazing at this because of dietary restrictions and being intentional about your nutrition. The same things that you're intentional about your nutrition, I would be intentional about for Monty. What I love that she shared is the aisles we shop on are the aisles that we should be shopping for them on, right? What I hadn't considered, and I'll say this as point number 2, is what is in the food that we're giving them if it's not fresh food. She was talking about how the pellets don't contain a lot of moisture, and specifically because of what they're made, it makes sense that um, what do you call it? The environment, I forget the environment of your stomach, what is it called? Do you remember the name of it? I'm
I
not
would say
remembering.
biosphere or
Something like
bio.
that. It's
Yeah.
like, basically the environment
Mhm.
in the dog's stomach is going to be affected by the pellets because it doesn't have a lot of water in it. And I
That
hadn't
makes
thought
sense.
about that, right?
Right?
Number 2 is that they get a lot of their water from their food, and we should too, right? So because those pellets are so dry, that's one of the things that makes fresh food so much better. And if you ask me for a third one,
You don't
and I
have
mean,
to, because those first
okay.
two are awesome.
Yeah. And, and I was always interested in your story with Monty, how your family loves pets. You didn't know you would have a dog, and then here comes this dog, and it's a beautiful fit. And that's kind of how her story was, how our dogs and our pets and our families add to the environmental wellness, how they can be mirrors and just really increase the intentionality that we have on being well in our home.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Monty was
great.
thrilled that Sammy's home. He's
Yeah.
really gonna lose it when I get home and all of us are there, because like, he's like, "Oh, this person's home, but this person's
Yes,
gone," right?
right.
Because he was a little sad when I was packing my suitcase, because he
Mhm.
always knows, right? He's
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
"Wait a second,
What
um,
is this?
what is happening here?" Well, that
Yes.
and missing our walks, because one of my practices is to take Monty walking over the Chattahoochee at and go check on the river. And it's kind of like I like to stack things, so it's dog gets a walk, I get a walk, I get to see the river, and I get to be out by some really good trees. So it's a wellness and environmental wellness for all of
Mhm.
us.
And that's what I was gonna say as a third one is that was her wisdom in action, being intentional about separating it and not only getting outside when it was with her dog, Lucky. Shout out to Lucky, right? That she also took herself out. And I think we can fall into that habit of stacking things and being intentional and making sure we're effective. But then when we look up, did I do that for myself though, or was I pouring out the whole time, these different places? So it was really good last week.
Woo, that's such a good question. Because like when the Bell's palsy came on, I don't even know if you know this.
Mhm.
Dr. Phelps was in town. Because I had just spoken at the Georgia Southern Academy of Care. I was
Mhm.
speaking to social workers.
Mhm.
I was speaking on Stillpoint and radical self and community care.
Mhm.
And it was the Friday, I had done that event, and then I'd
Yeah.
backed up Dr. Collins for the Art of Grieving, and then I had closed the whole conference using
Mhm.
InterPlay.
Mhm.
And so it was a big, in person event that I hadn't done in a while, right?
Right.
And that morning, I had told the story of my Bell's palsy.
Mhm.
And hindsight's always 2020, right? Because the next
Right.
morning when I woke up and it came on, I was like, "Ah, I jinxed myself." But
Mhm.
actually, I had had a few clues that it was coming, but I was
Okay.
prepping for this conference, so I had
Right.
missed them.
Got
Um,
it.
but Dr. Phelps was in town because she had come in and she had done a workshop about her inner allied cards and
Mhm.
the scientific backing of self-compassion, and how to effectively use them with clients. She had done a presentation to therapists, which was
Mhm.
very well received. It was awesome. And so she was there when it started coming on.
Mhm.
And for those of y'all that have listened to Dr. Phelps on our show, she's very no nonsense about stuff, right? And she has a pharmacology background. And so she locked everything down for me immediately. She was like, nope, no energy out, no energy out, no energy out. Took me to the ER, did all the things we needed to do. But
Mhm.
it was really fascinating because things I take for granted that I just do, she's like, no,
Mhm.
that's energy out. No,
Mhm.
no, no,
Mhm.
no. Like
Right.
I think I think it's so common for women. Like,
Mhm.
just as you said that, right? Are you pouring
Yes.
out or are you pouring in?
Mhm.
Um, and really not to judge ourselves harshly, be
No.
kind with ourselves, because
Yes.
society sets us up to do a lot of this, right?
Yes, yes.
But really checking in, how much is going out versus how much is going in. Yeah.
It's important. And I did know that she was here. We had talked earlier last month about the 28th. You just reminded me that I forgot to reach out. Dr. Phelps, I'm sorry. I
No,
was definitely
no.
crediting you, but I'm
Yeah,
glad she was there for you.
yeah, and she
Yeah,
probably meant to reach out for you, but,
she really
she
did.
got a little
Yeah.
distracted with
I'm
it.
so glad. And hey, that's what she was supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? I'm so glad
Right,
she was
she
there.
was can I just say I love our community? Like,
Yes.
she just took care of it. Like, she like,
Shout out
"Nope,
to
we're
the
doing
women.
this, we're doing that." Like, she, told my husband, "Nope, you stay here, I got her." Like,
Mm,
because he was like, "I can go do," she gave him tasks to be supportive, but also just, really it was awesome. had my
Yeah.
back, hadn't really got me where I needed to be. And yeah, because sometimes we need that partnership power, right?
Yes.
We
Thank you so much,
need,
Dr. Jones.
yeah, yeah, it was awesome. Big shout out to her. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Oof.
yeah, big stuff. Big
Yeah.
stuff.
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Sheila Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Sheila Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about 3 groups really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all 3 steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. The story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
yes, esthetician
yay.
tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. Especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
And grateful for communities, that we build. And I know our team, when I did the shout out to Manifesting Mondays, everybody was, I could feel the energy and the love and the support. And so, I think that is one of my biggest takeaways from Women Connected in Wisdom, and is like, build your community, y'all. Like if you're feeling alone or you're feeling like you need extra support, you can build it, right? You can find one that already exists, like Women Connect in Wisdom, and join us. Or you can build it. Like, what do you need in your life? What do you need to have mental and emotional wellness? What do you need for environmental wellness and physical wellness? And we're midway through the year. We're actually past midway. Isn't that nuts?
Crazy.
Like,
Yes,
it's
crazy.
nuts.
My
But
mom
I
said
always like,
pretty.
right?
Yeah.
But it's always a good time for a check-in and a checkup with yourself. Like, how you doing on these things?
Yeah.
And not to be harsh with yourself, but just to say, oh, okay, I probably could do a little better here. Or, what do I need here? What do I need to ask for?
And that's what I write about in our volume 2, talking about maximizing your capacity, right? And being intentional around your intellectual wellness and what you're doing. It can be almost nerve-wracking to look at the plan if you feel, and we talked about it earlier, right? If you feel like you're not on exactly where you thought you would be, but you still have to look at it, still check in with yourself, because that gives you the opportunity to pivot and add if it's needed, or take away if you're doing too much, or take away something that might not be adding, and then you can still get to where you're supposed to get to, where you wanted to get to in the time, So I think it's really important. And sometimes it can feel selfish because in the middle of everything, we feel like we're supposed to be working on everybody else, but you got to check in with yourself to make sure that it's sustainable. So yeah, I'm so glad you had that support.
I don't know if I said this to you last time we were on air together, but
Okay.
I was doing a training and somebody said that we often overestimate what we can get done in a month and underestimate what we can get done in a year.
Mm. We haven't
And
talked
maybe
about
it
it
was a
recently,
week
but
or
I
maybe
have heard it.
and I think about that because when I think about 163 episodes, right? When you
Mhm,
talk
mhm,
about that broader view,
mhm.
that's 2.5 years worth of work,
Right.
right? Um,
3. We're going on 3.5. Is it next year 4? Yeah, yep,
oh,
'cause
geez
on
Louise. Okay. This is the difference in our generations. I forget years.
I'm here for it.
Um, thanks for keeping me on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, some months more gets done than other months. But when
Mhm.
you look at the totality of it, is that
Right.
consistency and
Mhm.
that's, incremental steps and here we go. And yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are the guests that you want to lift up and shout out and from this last season?
Ooh, so let's go to the episode before, right? So we were off intellectual wellness. And again, thank you guys so much for your support as we pivot and hold true to our values of resting when we need to be off. So if you were looking for intellectual wellness, there is not a new episode for season 19, but again, we have 18 or so other resources for you in that category. The episode before that, episode 161, was amazing. Aoliana Elliott with Podcast Strategy with Heart. And I had been looking forward to this
So fun.
conversation since we met,
So fun.
and that's what we're talking about. Like, how do you get to 163 episodes through transitions, through difficulties and emergencies and job changes and, you know, study abroad trips and all the things? It's really nailing down, why are you doing what you're doing, right? Why do you want to have a podcast? And when I think about Women Connected in Wisdom, the first thing I thought about when I learned about the 8 dimensions of wellness was, oh, everybody needs to know about this. How can we be intentional about our wellness if we don't know the categories? And if we do know the categories, if we don't have the resources, right? I can know financial wellness is a thing, but if I don't know where to start, how to build a budget, what step to take first, then it could be overwhelming. It could be discouraging, but podcasts are a great resource for tools and strategies, right? And I love that she helps podcasters know why they're doing what they're doing, get organized behind the scenes, because it is more than just being live for an hour and a few graphics. So yeah, we had a really good conversation.
We did. And
Mhm.
folks can check out that conversation and also know that Shannon and I are here for you if you're interested in that. We have done some podcast consulting for getting people up and started and how it works. And we've actually had a class on it before. We've been kicking around. Do we do some more? So let us know if you're interested in that because, we love this and it's super fun. And there are some tips and tricks behind the scenes that
Mhm.
would make it easier if we'd have known them ahead of time.
Right. Right. And hey, you know what you know, and implement the new as soon as possible.
Right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I was also thinking about Carol May Whittick from the UK when we
Mhm.
had that conversation about creating higher energy and energetic resonance.
What were you thinking about? Yeah.
Um, well, I was just, I love it when we talk to people from across the pond.
Me too.
And I was also loved how close that was to my recent trip to the UK and
Yes.
hearing her accent
Mhm.
and really just that we are connected globally.
Yeah.
That, this is stuff that the 8 dimensions of wellness is can apply across the board. And so I was thinking about that. I was thinking about just what a delight
Yeah.
that her spiritual wellness and talking about yeah, just really talking about ways that we can be authentic, we can be connected, and that it's okay also if you need a coach for some of this stuff. That's
Right.
okay. That it's
Yeah.
okay to ask for help and get partnership power if you're stuck or
Mhm.
you're just needing some new ideas or a refresher. I
Yeah.
really
And for me, it was also in that conversation, it's okay for coaching and it's okay to listen to your inner wisdom. She was talking about how she was doing music, and it was interesting that the music she was making didn't come from a book. We love books. We talk about why we do the books, the importance of authorships, the importance of being a narrator and everything we walk our ladies through. But we also know that there is innate wisdom in all of us, right? I believe that God gives us stuff. The Holy Spirit tells us stuff. So it's not just from a book or from a person that I might get this. And that's where our creativity comes from, right? And our uniqueness. So I loved how she was talking about her younger self and her creative process, and just honoring that, and honoring that you being connected to something outside of yourself, and exploring that and sharing that is also spiritual wellness.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Want to give a shout out to Coach Co for being one of our guest hosts this season. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yes.
Coach
Yes.
Co on summer
And
break as a teacher. Tell me all about that episode.
oh, it was fun with Nevadia Shelton as our guest. And we were talking about gloss, glam, and social wellness. And this is where this episode continued to remind myself, right, that, hey, you're helping other people, but what about yourself? Because my lips were dry on that episode, Christine. I was like, how are we going to be talking about gloss and you don't have your Blistex in your gloss? And I know it's not the end of the world, but it was pretty funny.
It's a check-in, right?
It's a
It's a
check-in. Yep.
check-in. Wear my shine if we're talking about gloss,
Come on,
right?
gotta be protected. And just what we're talking about, in our conversation, we've already talked about the different generations. I love Nevadia's story of how she started her business during school, during college, and is now gone viral on TikTok. She has this hair voodoo oil that's amazing with these Indian herbs. So really good for your scalp, really good for hair. And what I love about our story is that depending on how you look at it, we could have been competition. She sells shea butter, she sells oils, I sell shea butter, I sell oil, but our oils are different. When we met, and this is one of my favorite parts of our story, she told me that in the summertime, she doesn't do shea butter. And I had literally not thought about taking a product off based on the capacity that it cost me to execute it, right? Or even pivoting that way based on the seasons. I thought about adding a scent. I didn't think about taking away a product. So her business acumen, her strategy, her intentionality, and she sent Cam over there to help. He has juices. He's been to a Sheila Glow event. I just love the full circleness of it, and how she's doing her thing despite being young and being nervous about it and all the different things that come with it. So her, I, and Co had a really good time on that gloss, glam, and social wellness.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And I'm so excited for her success on
Mhm.
TikTok and what she's been up to.
Yes.
Also
Oh,
need
and
to
her
give a
new
shout out.
billboard.
Say it again.
She had a billboard this week where I was on Instagram, and yep, she's just posting everything. So continuing to grow.
Yay, yay.
Yes.
Congrats, congrats. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Congrats. That was
Want to give a
beautiful.
big shout out of thanks also to Dr. Joe Veazey for co-hosting
Yes.
this season. Y'all, we're talking about physical wellness with Kavita Sae. Is that how you
Yes.
say her last name?
I believe so. I believe
Tell me
so.
about that one.
So I love this one too, physical wellness, because this guest has scented oils and actually combines oils and self-care products with human design. And that's really important, knowing yourself, right? Knowing what you're dealing with and works best for your system to get you centered and stay in that healthy state that we've been talking about. So I love her background. I love the intentionalities with her product. And again, we were talking about from burnout to vibrancy. So how do we do this on a daily basis in a way that's easy to implement? Not that everything's always going to be easy or always going to be quick, but it doesn't have to be difficult. And for me, Dr. Joe Veazey is definitely one of those people. The reason we met, the reason we talked about partners, me and my partner, Pharaoh, my boyfriend, met, and she helps me stay on the healthy side and not the burnout side. So the three of us had a really good time talking about being intentional and what it could look like for physical wellness.
Mm, I love
Mm,
it. Well,
so
thank
good.
you so much for holding it down this season. I
You're welcome.
really I'm grateful that we had a season 19
Right?
in the
Yes.
midst of everything. And
Yes.
excited to launch season 20. Like I
Yeah.
think it's going to be really awesome.
Yeah. And it reminds me of our last episode that we haven't gone through, which is the emotional and mental with Corey Micah. And I had been looking forward to this one too, right? She was talking about freedom to swim with calm confidence. And we've been talking about the landscape of America. And we know not everybody always has access to pools, right? Or the knowledge how to swim. And sometimes that can be daunting, trying to get out there and make sure that that chlorine doesn't sting your nose too bad. You don't swallow too much water.
Well, and just to put it in perspective, this episode was before all the shark attacks in Florida too. So
Shark attacks. I've been building business plans, y'all. I don't know what's going on right now. What's shark attacks? What happened?
oh my gosh. Like, I'm not exactly sure the cause,
Okay.
but there has been a lot of shark activity off of the coast of Florida and probably off the
Okay.
coast of Georgia too. But Florida is a tourist destination.
Destination. Yeah.
So there's been a lot of more bites than usual. Like a lot of and a lot of how it gets captured on the internet. So a
Right.
lot of it's still statistically,
Still a thing.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah. If y'all
I
are
think
trying to
about that
do the
when I think
basic thing,
about
think
swim
about
with
what?
confidence. Just don't do it off the Florida shores right now.
Just don't do it. And no, we're not gonna make fun of it. But I hear you. I hear you. I
Right?
hear you.
Or do
And
it. I guess you're just paying attention while you do it. I guess we shouldn't say don't do it, but pay
uh,
attention.
right. And
Yeah.
when you ask like what I've been thinking about, I love in her episode how she said you kind of have to get ready twice, right? So to get ready, to get set, and then to
And
go.
then the go.
And
Yeah. The
that's been giving
incremental
me
steps.
it's
Yeah.
important. It's been giving me a lot of grace with having ideas and wanting to implement it. Like we talked about, like sometimes it's not going to be immediate. Sometimes you need to wrap your mind around it and make sure that everything is included. What I will say, I see us going to wisdom and action. If we're wrapping up, and we talked about some good stuff today, season 19, what would I say? Do you have one that comes to mind?
My first one, honestly, is
Yeah.
rest.
Okay.
Hashtag rest. Like it is summertime. I
Yeah.
know, especially as women, we tend to put more on ourselves. Like, I don't know, when I was raising kids, especially, I'd always think, oh, I'm going to get so much done during the summer. But,
Yeah.
it's a different kind. Like, even going on vacation or planning summer activities can be a big deal. But really paying attention to the heat
Mhm.
across our nation and drink more water, like some of the practical things, right?
Yes.
So I mean, I would say hashtag rest and I would say hashtag check in with your body. So if you
I
need
love
more
it.
water, if you need shade, if you need like really just getting back to some of the basics.
I love it. And I'll say, and this might have been one in one of the shows, but I'll say keep your non-negotiables. Because as everything's been shifting, that is really something else that's been helping me stay centered, right? Doing my devotional and praying in the morning, like gotta be in there, making sure that I'm drinking my water, making sure that I'm exercising, making sure that I'm journaling. And I shared earlier in the season how my therapist gave me the homework of gratitude for the business and the businesses. And that was really helpful as I moved out of the retail space. And I don't even know if we've talked about it on air. So you guys know Sheila Glow has officially moved out. So we have been on Auburn Avenue for the past year and a half. Right now we are back completely online and doing pop-ups. So we will be at the Beltline this Saturday and there'll be more information about it. But keeping your non-negotiables is really big through the season of transition and keeping my mind clear. I know we talked about incoherence and coherence with Magic Mind has been amazing, so we had the sponsor this season. We talked about it with our guests in the different shows, and you guys still have the opportunity to participate in that discount if you would like. Their products are amazing, and this discount is really, really good. If you go to www.magicmind.com/WCW. You will get 56% off your first month subscription, 20% after that. If you happen to hear this later, not to worry, you can still get 20% off your first month. They're going to take care of you. And all you need is our discount code, this WCW20. And last week, our guest asked us about the ingredients. And I know you and I had gone through it. So I can include the picture of the ingredients in the show notes so you guys know all these amazing things that they have. But I've really been enjoying staying clear and again, making sure that my non-negotiables are there so we can take care
I
of
love
everything else.
that. You mentioned the Beltline. What's for
Mhm.
folks that are not from Atlanta or that,
Oh,
may not tell folks what the Beltline
yes.
is and what you got going on there this weekend.
I love it. So the Beltline is this outside space, right? They call it a Beltline because of the way that it's shaped, right? Is it around the city? Where does it go around?
It 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 doesn't completely go around the city,
I
but
know
that I
they're
think
like
is the
building it.
long-term goal,
Right,
right?
right, right. I think I've seen the plans. But again, it's outside space. You can skate, you can run, you can walk, you can bike. I'm going to be right by the bike shop. Now, I could tell you, I'm going to be honest. I've been to the Beltline off of a couple of different places, right? So where the bike shop is, I need to Google it and get the information. But they have Pond City Market that has shops and different restaurants. They have stuff along the Beltline, and this is where we'll be this Saturday from 10 to 10.
I love their public art. So, is there a festival this weekend? Is there like what's going on? Do we know?
That's great. I don't know
Okay.
'cause again, the Beltline is huge,
Pop
right?
up.
Pond City
Yeah.
Market by itself is huge. So I know there's gonna be this pop-up with amazing vendors. I'm sure
Cool.
there's other stuff with Georgia getting to the end of summer
Probably
here,
some musicians,
Yep, yep.
probably
There will
good
be a DJ, the
food.
amazing food,
Yeah.
vibes. So come out and see us. We're gonna be
Right?
celebrating self-care and wrapping up summer glowing.
I love that. I love that.
Yes.
Is there anything else folks need to know before we wrap season 19?
Is there anything else we need to know? I don't think so. I think we've done amazing at everything, y'all. And thank you so much for the downloads, for the listens, for participating online. I don't have anything from us. What I would say from them is let us know what you've been getting from Women Connected on
Mhm.
Connected in Wisdom. We talked about it earlier on social media. Let us know what you like, what you would like to see, and we look forward to more. What are you gonna
Right?
say?
And connect with us on socials. And if you have somebody that you think would be an awesome guest, send them our way.
Yeah.
And we have some really good guests lined up for you through the end of the year. Like we're already booking into next year.
Yes.
So, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't love to talk to somebody
We
that
definitely
you
have
know.
space. Right. Yep, we have space and there's more dates after May next year. So we're putting
Okay.
it together. And if you know somebody needs their resource, we will absolutely do our best to get it out to everybody. So I'm here for it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for episode 163. We'll be back live next week for the beginning of season 20. In the meantime, don't forget,
Be well
be wise, and
and
be
be
whole.
whole.
We'll see you soon. Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.